Revealed, orphaned girl's incredible fate, forced to marry mysterious poor man who shockingly threatens her dream. Emily's heart thudded against her ribcage as she stared at the ancient, wooden shelves in the dim community library. The scent of fading pages and dusty corners hung heavy in the air. It was her haven, but today it felt suffocating, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. She flicked through her worn planner, filled with scribbles and frantic notes. Class schedules, work shifts at the diner, and her burgeoning dreams of college all jumbled together. It was supposed to be a guide, but instead, it felt like chains binding her to a reality she longed to escape. Emily was a ghost in her own life, a 17-year-old orphan navigating a small town's expectations with an elderly aunt who barely occupied the same space as her, right down to their cramped apartment. Guilt and grief wrapped her tightly as she recalled her parents gone too soon in a car crash that replayed in her nightmares. "You must be strong, Emily," she'd whisper to herself, but with each passing day, the strength felt more like an act. The community's whispers clung to her like shadows, drowning her in pity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day Emily met Jack, a janitor at the library, everything shifted. There was an aura about him, his hands, stained with paint, spoke of stories hidden behind his humble smile. His sketches, hastily tucked behind the janitor's cart, revealed a vibrant world she'd long hidden away. Their conversations, cracked with laughter and shared passions, awakened something dormant inside her. Yet doubt gnawed at her, a bitter reminder of their differences. How could a girl like her, tied to poverty and loss, dream of a future entwined with someone so full of life? As the townsfolk began to chatter about Jack's mysterious past, a familiar rot of unease crawled inside her. The threat loomed over their budding romance like a storm cloud, a web of prejudice and conventional expectations tightening around her throat. Her first instinct was to shield him, but the nagging conflict within her only deepened. Would her affection for Jack cost her the scholarship she worked so hard for? When the engagement proposal from Gerald, the charming heir of a wealthy family, arrived like an unwelcome specter, Emily's heart sank. This union, crafted to elevate her status, felt like shackles of its own. How had she become a pawn in a game she never wanted to play? Each choice she made, once a deliberate step toward independence, felt preordained. The tension warped into knots, tightening as she faced the intersection of love and obligation. A part of her yearned to snatch freedom from those burdens, yet deep-seated fears of societal rejection wrapped their tendrils around her heart. Could she defy their expectations? Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, but as her choices closed in, she felt a flicker of courage yearning to burst forth. Emily stood at the precipice, torn between two worlds. Each step she took echoed with the voices of her past, a cacophony of what-ifs swelling louder with each heartbeat. Would she dare to reclaim her fate, or would she forever remain bound by her family's haunted legacy? Emily sat at a weathered table in the library, her gaze fixed on the blank page of her journal. The remnants of Jack's laughter echoed in her mind, the way it lit up his eyes, igniting warmth in her otherwise cold reality. But each time she thought of him, the shadow of Gerald's proposal loomed large, stealing her breath and conviction. What did she truly want? After the harrowing revelation of her impending engagement, Emily had taken solace in her creative pursuits. She had spent hours sketching, pouring her emotions into colored pencil strokes as vibrant as her dreams. Yet, even her art could not mask the discord gnawing at her heart. The scholarship was her lifeline, the ticket to a future brimming with possibilities, yet it felt tangibly tethered to her connection with Gerald, to the life she didn't want. That fateful afternoon, the library's silence became stifling. She glanced around as though the dusty shelves might offer her guidance. But as she turned to leave, she noticed a small art exhibit announcement pinned to the board: entries open to all students. It was an opportunity, a chance to showcase her art, to be recognized beyond the weight of her societal chains. Her fingers trembled slightly as she took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of hope. What if she poured her heart into this? It could be a step toward independence. But then doubt flooded her mind, a familiar suffocation she fought to dismantle. The community's expectations pressed in, whispering insidiously that an artist, a girl like her, wasn't meant for more than a life of servitude. Suddenly, her thoughts shifted. If she entered the exhibit, it would demand attention and opportunity to confront the town's prejudice wrapped up in her own self-doubt. Would that be enough to assert her identity? She could use her art as a bridge, a voice echoing her truth. Could she bear to let it speak for her? With renewed focus, Emily began planning her submission. The colors danced in her mind as she envisioned the canvas illustrating the heartbeat of her life: loss, hope, love, entrapment, freedom. It was a paradox, much like herself. But the true challenge lay ahead. How would she present her work without revealing the innermost fears she battled? As dusk enveloped the library, she tucked the exhibit flyer safely into her planner, a personal manifesto of sorts. But with this ambition came more than just a drive to create. It ignited a cold fear of rejection. She had to confront Gerald soon. The engagement turned its shadow deeper, looming over her decisions like a predator. In her heart, the electrifying thrill of creating art battled with the ominous presence of obligation. Emily felt the pressure intensify, a rope pulling her in conflicting directions. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, grappling with the growing determination rising within her. Just as she stood to leave the library, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Emily." It was Jack, his voice laced with concern. He stepped into her space, concern etched on his features. "What is wrong?" The weight of his gaze sent a jolt through her. Was it time to confide in him? Could she share the chaos roiling in her heart? Or would it risk everything they had built together? As she stared into Jack's eyes, the dawning realization hit her hard. Perhaps the answer to her struggle lay not merely in choosing love or duty, but in embracing her own voice. What would she tell him? The moment felt pivotal, charged with the very essence of freedom or restraint. She opened her mouth, words poised on the tip of her tongue, as the haunting echoes of her choices surged back to the forefront. The stakes were higher than ever. "Jack. I need to tell you something important." Emily's heart raced as she looked into Jack's concerned eyes. The tension in the air thickened, her throat tightening around the words that could unravel everything. Was she prepared to lay bare her internal conflict, to expose the chasm that formed between her dreams and the reality Gerald had woven around her? "Emily, what is it?" Jack pressed, his gentle tone drawing her deeper into introspection. As needed as it was to articulate her fears, an unsettling doubt washed over her. Would he understand? Or would he dismiss her ambition as youthful folly? "Gerald proposed." The words slipped past her lips with a force she hadn't anticipated, the bluntness of them hitting the air like a stone cast across a pond, a ripple effect that surged through her soul. She instantly regretted the fragility of her admission. She could see the shift in Jack's face, the astonishment lurking behind his brows, the unembellished disappointment. "Proposed? You mean, you're actually considering it?" Jack's voice carried a weight, wariness threading through his disbelief. Emily felt the urge to defend herself, but quickly quelled it. "I don't know, Jack. I'm torn." The silence between them expanded. It wasn't just the engagement weighing her down, it was the crushing realization that her dreams, her art, could be snuffed out under societal expectations. She drew a deep breath, determined to keep her guard down. "I found an art exhibit to enter. It could be a chance for me to showcase who I really am. But I'm scared." Jack's expression softened, and in that moment, she saw the flicker of recognition and acknowledgement of her struggle. "You're an artist, Emily. Your voice deserves to be heard. Don't let anyone, not even Gerald, take that from you." His words sparked a flicker of defiance within her, like the first flickers of dawn after a long, suffocating night. Yet, the weight of Gerald's expectations loomed over her like an ominous cloud. She desperately wanted to seize this moment, to bring her art to life and let it symbolize her true essence, a complex blend of emotions, a manifestation of her journey. "What if I fail?" she blurted out, her vulnerability joining the conversation uninvited. "What if they don't accept me? What if no one sees it the way I envision it?" "You can't think like that. You have to trust yourself. This is your chance to fight for what you want," Jack urged, his eyes intense, moving beyond mere reassurances into the realm of motivation and belief. Emily's breath quickened, her heart pounding in synchrony with the realization that this milestone could be her defining moment. Could she follow through and find herself through her art? The thought painted her cheeks with warmth, but a gnawing uncertainty lingered, whispering that risk might lead to abandonment both for her ambitions and for Jack. "Jack, what if stepping out means losing everything? My safety, the scholarship, you." There it was, a confession of her conflicting emotions, a tangible fear of what embracing her identity could mean. "It means finding yourself," he countered, his voice steady and resolute. "Sometimes we have to scare ourselves to go after what matters. The moment you unlock your truth, you might discover a strength you didn't know existed." An electric pulse surged through her, but the haunting sense of loss hovered at her periphery. Could she balance the commitments already laid at her feet with the courage required to chase her dreams? Jack leaned closer, his presence providing a sense of security despite the storm raging within her. She realized she stood at the precipice of a decision. The time had come to confront not just Gerald, but the constructs that held her prisoner in a life meant for someone else. Maybe I can find a way," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper yet imbued with unyielding resolve. The unease coiled in her stomach began to relax slightly, she sensed a shift within herself, a grudging acceptance of her impending confrontation. Just as she felt a renewed strength beginning to crystallize, her phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with a message from Gerald, "We need to talk." The feeling of impending obligation wrestled once more with her newfound courage. "Jack, Emily's voice faltered, he reached out, squeezing her hand for reassurance. The moment felt suspended, vibrant with potential, and fraught with chaos, as if time itself had stilled in anticipation of the imminent confrontation she now had to face. Little did she know, this encounter would force her to make choices about love, herself, and the path she was willing to pave in the world. Would she rise to the challenge or submit to the expectations pressing upon her? The ground beneath her felt unsteady, but she knew one thing: the battle for her future had just begun. Emily sat in the muted glow of her living room, the message from Gerald still flashing on her phone. A whirlwind of thoughts collided in her mind, the weight of Jack's encouragement battling against the imminent confrontation that awaited her. The question loomed large: how could she mold her future when it felt so tangled in Gerald's expectations? Taking a deep breath, she envisioned the exhibit, the colors, the textures, the emotions swelling inside her. This was not merely a contest, it was an opportunity to tell her story, to articulate who she truly was outside the confines of her impending engagement. Yet, the thought of facing Gerald, the man who had enveloped her in a cocoon of comfort, terrified her. Jack leaned against the wall, observing her with unwavering focus. "You need to decide what matters most in your life, Emily. No one else can do it for you." His words rang true, echoing in the chambers of her heart. The realization jolted her: this was not just about art, it was about defining her own destiny. She didn't want to wake up 20 years from now, an echo of someone else's dreams, relegated to the sidelines while others painted their stories across the canvas of their lives. "You're right, but how do I even start?" she asked, the helplessness creeping into her voice. "Start by being honest with yourself and with Gerald," Jack encouraged. "Set boundaries. Let him know what you want, and who you truly want to become." His unwavering faith bolstered her resolve. Perhaps this confrontation didn't have to be a wrestling match between love and obligation. It could be an earnest discussion about shared futures and individual dreams. Taking the plunge would be the ultimate act of bravery. As the sun set outside, staining the sky a vibrant orange, Emily felt a surge of clarity. She had to let Gerald see her struggle, to understand that she was not merely a companion or a trophy, but a woman on the cusp of self-discovery. The fear of losing him initially held her captive, but now it transformed into a profound understanding. The most important relationship she needed to nurture was the one with herself. "Okay," she finally said, her voice steadying. "I will talk to him. I'll tell him about the exhibit and what it means to me. Maybe if he sees my passion, it will make sense to him." Jack smiled, a proud glint in his eyes. "That's the spirit. And remember, even if he reacts badly, it won't define you. You are more than his expectations." As she prepared for their conversation, the prospect of expressing her dreams became a beacon of hope. Emily knew she was about to chart a course toward an uncertain future, but she was ready to anchor herself in authenticity regardless of how the tides of others shifted. Her phone buzzed again, Gerald's name lighting up the screen once more. Anxiety tightened her chest, yet it felt different this time, less about trepidation and more about resolution. Taking one last glance at Jack, who nodded in encouragement, Emily steeled her breath. She opened the message and typed her reply, "Can we meet tonight? There's something important I need to discuss." As she hit send, the gravity of her choice settled in. This was not merely a conversation, it was a pivotal moment that could alter the entire trajectory of her life. Emily stood taller, the uncertainty mingling with newfound strength. She would no longer be passive in her own story. Yet, deep down, as anticipation curled in her stomach, she couldn't shake the nagging question echoing in her mind: what if Gerald didn't understand? The call for honesty beckoned her, but the fear of the unknown pressed heavily. Would this confrontation unravel or fortify her sense of self? With her palms slightly moist, Emily prepared herself to face the man she was expected to marry, the man whose plans often dictated her own. She would wield the vulnerability of her truths like the brush in her hand, and paint her path with them, no matter how messy it might become. The moment of revelation was on the horizon, and as she readied her heart and mind, she recognized that this was more than a meeting. It was a pivotal threshold, where her future would be either reclaimed or irrevocably altered. The evening air felt charged with intensity as Emily prepared for her meeting with Gerald. She sat in front of her mirror, her reflection revealing a woman caught between two worlds, the one she was expected to inhabit and the one she craved to explore. Her heart raced, each beat echoing her resolve. Today was the day she could either assert her identity or wither beneath someone else's dreams. In the quiet of her home, she replayed Jack's words, anchoring herself in their truth. "Honesty," he said. "Setting boundaries." The thought of opening her heart, exposing her ambitions, coursed through her like a surge of electricity. But even still, the fear of Gerald's possible reaction loomed like a shadow, darkening her resolve with cold uncertainty. As she prepared to leave, she clutched her portfolio, the vibrant colors of her art pulsating with life. Each piece reflected a fragment of her identity, the chaos, beauty, and vulnerability that comprised who she was. Their colors, once muted by doubt, now seemed to radiate confidence and potential. This was her time to express not just her art but her truth. The car ride to the cafe felt interminable, each passing moment heightened by the gravity of the conversation she was about to engage in. She rehearsed her words silently, carefully selecting phrases infused with conviction. No longer would she be a passive participant in her narrative, she was ready to articulate her boundaries, her desires, and perhaps, her fears. Upon arriving, the soft chatter of patrons contrasted sharply with the pounding in her chest as she spotted Gerald seated at their usual table. He looked up, his warm smile momentarily disarming. But beneath that exterior was the weight of expectation, and the push and pull of their entwined lives struck her like a wave. "Hey, glad you could make it," he said, motioning for her to sit. "Gerald, there's something I want to talk about." Her voice was steady as she halted the usual small talk. Each word felt like a small step toward reclaiming her voice. He leaned in, brows furrowing in curiosity. "What's on your mind?" Emily took a breath and found courage in the depths of her uncertain heart. "I've been working on my art lately, and there's an exhibition coming up. It means a lot to me." "An exhibition? That's great." Gerald's enthusiasm was palpable, yet the nuances of his expression hinted at a deeper skepticism. "It's not just a show. It's about who I am. It's my story," she continued, her voice gaining momentum. "I want to explore this path more seriously, and I need your support, not just as a partner but as a person who understands what this means for me." He shifted in his chair, his smile fading into uncertainty, and the silence that followed sifted through the air like crushed glass. "Emily, I care about your happiness," but his words trailed off, and she could see the struggle in his eyes, a mixture of concern and an instinct to hold the status quo together. The flicker of doubt latched onto her heart. "But..." She pressed gently, embodying an anchored courage to continue. Stephanie's internal dialogue reeled with anxiety. What if he understand her needs? What if he categorized her dreams as indulgent fantasies unworthy of consideration? "I just thought we were building a life together," and sometimes he hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I don't know if this fits into our plan, Em." Her heart sank, each syllable weighing heavy and familiar. The very thought that her pursuit could be viewed as an inconvenience carved into her spirit. It ignited questions she had long buried. Had she been too passive? Had she unconsciously consented to being a secondary character in someone else's narrative? With a newfound determination surging within her, Emily decided she must not retreat into self-doubt. "This is my life, too, Gerald. Dreams aren't always neat packages. They require risk and vulnerability. I want us to build a future, but not one that requires me to silence my passions or adjust my aspirations." As the words unfurled, she felt lighter yet acutely aware of the chasm growing between them. A confrontation had begun, revealing the cracks that had long hidden beneath their relationship. Would Gerald step into the chaos of her dreams, or would he cling to the comfort of predictability? The intensity of his expression shifted, curiosity mingled with confusion, expectations battling desire. As Emily brushed her fingers over her portfolio, the weight of the moment crystallized. This was not just about art, it was about her identity, her very essence as a person, becoming truly witnessed for the first time. But as Gerald struggled for words, she sensed that this conversation was only the beginning of a much larger reckoning. In facing his opposition, she had uncovered a deeper question within herself: could she continue to invest in a relationship that stifled her growth? The silence extended, thick with tension and unspoken fears. As they both navigated the enormity of this moment, Emily realized she was standing at a crucial crossroad where her desires crashed against someone else's expectations, and as she awaited his response, the looming possibility choked her with uncertainty. Would she yield, retreating back into the shadows of others' decisions, or would she assert her right to forge a life lined with authenticity and courage? In that critical moment of decision, Emily recognized her footing in the storm, ready to challenge not just Gerald, but her own limitations. The real battle lay ahead, where she would either redefine her path or grapple with the pain of unfulfilled dreams.